People often ask me why I choose to visit the same locations year after year. They suggest going to a new location so I can be inspired by new subjects. There's a lot of truth in that, but ultimately it's the intimate knowledge of a location that I attribute to some of my favorite images. Successful photos seldom happen by accident. They stem from accumulation of time and knowledge about that location and its many nuances. It's that connection to a location that I treasure most, and when my work embodies the feeling of being there, I know I've done my job. Despite having visited Death Valley every year since 2009, I still find it to be an incredibly intimidating location. It's vast, unforgiving, and beautiful. So there I found myself, driving through Death Valley on the morning of a clearing storm. Golden rays of sunlight illuminated a sky filled with beautiful clouds that danced gracefully among the mountain peaks. And it was then that I found my subject, a grand view of the valley with golden saltgrass in the foreground and cloud-draped mountains in the background. This is a location I'd been wanting to photograph for many years, but never quite had the right conditions. This year, I managed to put myself in the right place at the right time.
Well, this is an area that I came to yesterday, and I was just kind of wandering around, and I like the way that the salt grass looked in the foreground. And now as the storm is clearing out, there's some really nice clouds out there. So I've already made 2 exposures on Velvia 50 using the grad filter, and then I also made an exposure on Nectar 100 with the grad filter. Doesn't really need it, but is easy enough just to leave there. And now I have some black and white out. Now when I did my first few exposures, the foreground was in shade, as it is now. So I had the really cool light background on the mountains and the clouds. But for the black and white, I feel like I should have the foreground in sun and the background in sun. So I gotta wait for breaking the clouds when the sun comes out, because I think the black and white could benefit from a little more contrast, so it doesn't look quite as mushy. But it's beautiful out here. I'm kind of back in the swing of things as far as shooting again. Yesterday was a little bit of a bummer, but this is nice. I think it's a matter of being inspired by what you see, and it's really tough not to be inspired by that right there. This is pretty awesome.
After making my exposures, I left my camera in place and spent some time exploring the nearby salt flats. The beautiful clouds stuck around all day, but the light I captured in the morning was certainly the best. Every shooting trip has a moment where I realize my job is done. Though this was my 6th day in Death Valley, I spent 4 days in Zion prior to this trip, so I've been away from home for a week and a half. The beautiful clouds that morning were a sign that I should probably head home. After all, what else could possibly top these conditions? While wandering the nearby salt flats, I received a text message from a friend who was planning a quick overnight trip to Death Valley. It was his first visit, so I decided to stick around for another day. To make it easy on myself, I decided to leave my camera in place overnight and shoot a sunrise photo with the very same composition. My friend arrived well after sunset on the evening of day 6, and the next morning we drove to the location where my camera spent the night. We hiked out onto the salt flats in hopes of a great sunrise. Now, if you'll remember, I went into this trip with a New Year's resolution of shooting more and leaving a decision-making process for when I get home. On the morning of day 7, the conditions before sunrise looked bleak, but I stuck with my New Year's resolution and ran an experimental long exposure. Though I didn't get the color I was hoping for, this image was a surprise when reviewing the film for the trip. It's not as powerful as the clearing storm photo, but it captured the calm feeling that morning. Overall, I'm very happy with the results from my trip to Death Valley. It's been quite the journey, but I was able to photograph 6 different locations over the course of 6 days. That's a lot of film, and I'm glad I have a few keepers in the mix. Thanks as always for following my journey. I look forward to sharing my next trip. If you love this content and want to help support my journey, you can do so by subscribing to my YouTube channel, telling a friend, or sending a contribution of just $24 a year via PayPal. I depend on the generous support of people like you to produce this ad-free content. Thanks in advance for your support.
quite. A little bit of breeze, and then another cloud's coming over, but there's a little more sun coming after this passes. We got just one sheet of black and white left. Come on, sun. There you go. A little less breeze would be alright. Some of the grasses in the foreground are moving a little. And not quite full sun. It's going to be a half second at a 40. Oh, back to cloud again. I shot a lot today. Shot a lot more than I thought I would. It was beautiful. The fighter plane up there. Sneeze all over there. Nope, sunlight. Sunlight. Calm. There we go. My black and white shot. That's almost all the film I had, with the exception of some color neg. So dramatically different today compared to yesterday, both in the weather, but also just my general mood. What a difference a good night's sleep makes with a little rain on the tent. I guess I'm gonna leave my camera here for a while and sit in my chair and hang out.